Maple Crest Apartments was the kind of building people walk past without ever really noticing. It wasn't fancy, and it wasn't rundown. It was just ordinary. But everyone who lived there knew one thing. The fourth floor was different. The hallway felt colder, even in summer. The lights flickered more than anywhere else in the building. And at the very end of the hall stood apartment 404, a door people avoided without even realizing why. For 8 long years, apartment 404 had been officially empty. No one moved in. No one visited. No one had a key except the building manager, Mr. Andrews. The previous tenant, a quiet man named Ethan Cole, had vanished without warning. One day he was seen leaving with a backpack, and after that, no one saw him again. Police searched for him, questioned neighbors, and looked through the apartment, but they found nothing unusual. Eventually the case turned cold, and Ethan became another name on a long list of missing people. But the strange part wasn't the disappearance. It was what happened afterward. Soon after Ethan vanished, residents began hearing noises from inside 404. At first, it was small things, soft thuds, faint footsteps, the sound of something tapping on the walls late at night. But the noises grew louder over the years. Some people said they heard furniture being dragged across the floor. Others claimed they heard whispering, like someone talking to themselves in a low voice, repeating words over and over again. The strangest reports came from people who lived next door. They swore they heard someone pacing back and forth inside the apartment for hours, as if someone was restless, nervous, or waiting for something. But whenever the police checked, the room was empty, and there was no sign that anyone had entered. Mr. Andrews always had an explanation ready. "Old pipes," he would say. "This building is from the 1970s. Pipes make all kinds of weird sounds. Don't worry about it." But whenever someone asked him to open the door to 404, he hesitated. His face tightened, and his voice dropped. He avoided the topic, avoided the hallway, and avoided anything connected to Ethan Cole. Despite his reassurances, most residents didn't believe him. The fourth floor just didn't feel right. Even cleaners refused to work near that apartment alone. One cleaner even quit after saying she heard someone breathing just behind the door while she was mopping the hallway. Everything remained quiet, at least, quietly unsettling, until the night a new resident moved into the building. Her name was Lila Jennings, a university student who had recently rented apartment 403, right next to 404. Lila wasn't someone who believed in ghost stories or building legends. She was practical, focused, and very active online. So when she started hearing banging on the wall beside her bedroom around 1 a.m., she didn't ignore it. She grabbed her phone and started recording. The video she captured was shocking. The banging was loud, sharp, and rhythmic, too deliberate to be the sound of pipes. At one point in the video, the sound changed from banging to something else, something like a muffled voice calling out. Lila couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like someone struggling, someone desperate. The next morning, she uploaded the video to social media with the caption, "I think someone's trapped in the empty apartment next to mine." The clip spread quickly through the neighborhood. Residents panicked. Comments flooded in. Some people claimed the same thing had happened to them years earlier. Others insisted the apartment had always been haunted. But one comment stood out above all. "Someone needs to open that door. Something's wrong in there." Within hours, police arrived at Maple Crest Apartments. For the first time in 8 years, the door to apartment 404 was forced open, and nothing inside was the same as it was the day Ethan Cole disappeared. When the police forced open the door to apartment 404, everyone expected dust, cobwebs, and silence, nothing more. But the moment the door swung open, a cold, unnatural stillness filled the air. Even the officers paused. The room didn't look abandoned. In fact, it looked like someone had stepped out only moments earlier. The living room was neat and fully furnished. A coat hung over the back of a chair. Shoes were lined up beside the sofa. A lamp glowed faintly, though no one had turned it on. The curtains were drawn tightly, keeping the room in a dim, muted light that made everything feel frozen in time. Lila stood behind the officers with wide eyes. She whispered, "How is that possible? No one's lived here for years." One of the officers ran his fingers along a table. No dust. None at all. It was impossible. Other apartments in the building had at least a thin layer of dust if left uncleaned for just a few days. But this room looked clean, cared for, and lived in. The most unsettling thing sat on the kitchen counter. A freshly made cup of coffee, still warm. Officer Mills stared at it for several seconds before speaking. This was made, recently, within the last 24 hours. The lead detective frowned, but the door was locked. Windows sealed. No signs of entry. It didn't make sense. Every window had security bars. The door had a heavy double lock. There was only one key, supposedly in Mr. Andrews' office. And the last time anyone had opened the apartment was 8 years ago, during the original investigation. But the inside told a different story. As the officers moved deeper into the apartment, they noticed the walls. Every inch of space, living room, hallway, bedroom, was covered with newspaper clippings. Hundreds of them, some yellowed with age, some brand new. They all shared one theme: missing people. Faces of men, women, and children stared back from the walls. Some had dates going back 20 years. Others were recent cases. And in the center of one wall was a name circled several times in red marker. M.A. Reeves. Detective Harper recognized the name. Reeves, wasn't he that journalist who disappeared years ago? Another officer nodded. Yay, the one who claimed he was being followed. Seeing his name plastered across the wall felt like a warning. In the middle of the living room sat a small wooden table. On top of it was a notebook, its cover worn and edges frayed. Detective Harper opened it. Inside were chaotic scribbles, dates, names, coded notes, sketches of maps. Some pages looked rushed, as if written during moments of panic. Others were neat and carefully organized. The final page held a single line that made the entire room feel colder. They found me. If this door opens again, I won't be here anymore. For a moment, no one spoke. Lila felt a chill crawl up her spine. Is it from Ethan? The detectives didn't answer. One officer checked the windows again. No dust on the sills. No fingerprints except Ethan's and a few unidentified ones. The odd thing was that the air in the room didn't smell like an old, sealed space. It smelled like someone had been living there, breathing there. Even the bed looked recently used, the blanket rumpled, one corner folded back as if someone had risen in the middle of the night. As they continued searching, Detective Harper ordered a check on the building's security cameras. But when the officers pulled up the footage, they discovered something disturbing. Every camera on the 4th floor had gone dark at exactly 12:03 a.m. the night before. That was the same time Lila filmed the banging. Someone had disabled the cameras. Someone had entered, or was already inside, apartment 404. And whoever it was had vanished before morning. One officer stepped away from the group, his voice trembling slightly. This doesn't feel like a normal missing person case. Detective Harper stared at the walls, the coffee cup, the neat room, the final message. No, she whispered. This is something else. And with that, apartment 404 officially stopped being a cold case. It became something darker, deeper, and far more dangerous. Detective Harper couldn't shake the name from her mind, M.A. Reeves. It appeared again and again on the walls of apartment 404, circled in red like a target or a warning. She'd heard the name before. Anyone in law enforcement had. Reeves wasn't just a missing person. He had been a respected investigative journalist known for digging into stories most people were too afraid to touch. And 8 years ago, he vanished without a trace. The coincidence was too strong to ignore. So Harper went straight back to the precinct and requested Reeves' old case files. When the dusty box was placed on her desk, she opened it carefully, flipping through photos, articles, and transcripts. The details painted a frightening picture. Reeves had been investigating a human trafficking network operating quietly across the state. He had uncovered names, locations, and financial links that connected powerful people. But the deeper he went, the more paranoid he became. Friends said he complained about being followed. He received anonymous threats. His apartment was broken into twice. And then, one night, he disappeared. But buried inside the final pages of the file was a name that made Harper sit up straight. Source: Ethan Cole. Ethan, the missing tenant from apartment 404, was Reeves' last known contact. Suddenly, everything clicked. Ethan hadn't been just a random man who disappeared. He had been involved in something far darker. Maybe he wasn't just running. Maybe he was hiding. The next morning, Harper returned to Maple Crest Apartments with a team. Something told her the answers were still inside 404. While technicians dusted the walls and collected samples, Harper sat on the floor flipping through the files again. She noticed something she hadn't seen before, a small symbol drawn on several newspaper clippings. It looked like two overlapping circles. Ethan had traced the same symbol in his notebook. What does this mean? She wondered aloud. One technician approached with new information. Detective, we found something behind the radiator. They handed her a small memory card sealed in an evidence bag. Harper plugged it into her laptop. It contained dozens of short video clips, secretly recorded by Ethan. Some were outside coffee shops, some near warehouses, others inside Maple Crest apartments. One clip made everyone in the room go silent. Ethan appeared on the screen, speaking in a whisper. His face was pale, his eyes tired. If you're watching this, I'm running out of time. They found Reeves. They're looking for me. They know I live in 404. They know everything. He glanced over his shoulder before continuing. They're inside the building. I hear them at night. They think the cameras hide them, but I've seen the way they move through the old passages. If they get me, the files must be safe. Someone has to finish what Reeves started. The clip ended abruptly, leaving only silence. Harper took a deep breath. Old passages. What passages? Before she could think further, another officer approached, visibly shaken. Detective, we got fingerprints from the apartment. Some match Ethan Cole. But the others? Whose are they? Harper asked. The officer hesitated. They belonged to Mr. Andrews, the building manager. The news hit Harper like a shockwave. Andrews had always acted nervous around 404, brushing off concerns and avoiding the hallway. But now it wasn't just suspicious behavior. It was evidence. Harper and her team headed for the manager's office. Andrews sat behind his desk, his hands shaking as he tried to act calm. But his eyes told the truth. Fear, guilt, or maybe something worse. Mr. Andrews, Harper said firmly, we need to talk about Ethan Cole. Andrews' face went pale. I don't want to be part of this anymore. Before anyone could question him further, he whispered something that made the entire investigation take a darker turn. You don't understand. Ethan wasn't hiding from strangers. He was hiding from people inside this building. Harper stared at him, stunned. Who? Andrews swallowed hard. People you'd never expect. The truth behind apartment 404 was about to take a terrifying step closer. Detective Harper had heard strange claims before, but something about the way Mr. Andrews spoke made her skin crawl. His voice was shaky, his hands trembling, yet his eyes held a deep, exhausted truth, like a man who had been carrying a secret far too heavy for far too long. I never wanted to be part of this, he repeated quietly, almost to himself. I warned Ethan. I told him this place wasn't safe. Harper leaned forward. Safe from who, Mr. Andrews? Who was Ethan hiding from? For a moment, Andrews didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the office door, locked it, and lowered his voice. This building, it wasn't always apartments, he said. Before Maple Crest was built, the land belonged to a group, an organization that ran things most people didn't know about. They used the old structure for meetings, storage, and sometimes, for hiding people. Harper exchanged a glance with her partner. Hiding people. Andrews nodded. Human trafficking. Before the city shut the place down years ago. The revelation hit hard. The same network Reeves had been investigating. When they demolished the old structure to build Maple Crest, Andrews continued, they didn't clear everything. They left parts of the old foundation. Some of the original rooms, tunnels, and walls are still underneath us, hidden behind drywall, beneath the floors. Most people don't know they exist. And Ethan found one, Harper said. Andrews nodded again. Yes, in apartment 404. He explained that Ethan had discovered a loose floorboard shortly after moving in. Underneath it was a narrow space leading to a hidden passage. That passage connected to a small chamber, an old surveillance room from the previous building. The room had outdated equipment, dusty shelves, and a second door that connected to an older, deeper tunnel system. Ethan had shown Andrews everything. Andrews had been frightened, but Ethan begged him not to report it. He needed the hidden space. He said he needed somewhere safe while he helped Reeves finish the investigation. I didn't want to be involved, Andrews whispered. But Ethan said he had evidence that could take the whole network down. He told me if I helped him stay hidden, he could save people. Real people. Harper tried to remain calm. So you helped him. For how long? Months, Andrews admitted. I brought him food at night. He never left the passage unless he absolutely had to. He worked in that little hidden room under 404, gathering evidence. He said the network had eyes everywhere, even among normal-looking people. Harper stiffened. People in the building. Andrews swallowed hard. 2 of them. Both tenants. They watched him. At first, he didn't realize it, but when he did, it was too late. Who are they? Harper asked sharply. I don't know their real names, Andrews said. But I know they lived on the 2nd and 3rd floors. They disappeared the same week Ethan did. The room fell silent. Harper stood immediately. Show us the passage. Now. Andrews hesitated. Detective, I haven't opened that door in years. Show us, Harper repeated. They returned to apartment 404, where forensic teams were still working. Andrews walked slowly to the bedroom and moved a small dresser aside. He pulled up a thin piece of carpet, revealing a wooden board with a metal ring attached. It looked like a simple storage hatch, until he lifted it. A cold draft rose from the darkness below. A narrow staircase stretched downward into the unknown. Harper descended first, flashlight in hand. The passage led to a cramped chamber exactly as Andrews described. A bed, notebooks, old monitors, maps. It looked like Ethan had abandoned it in a hurry. But the most unsettling sign came from the floor. Fresh footprints in the dust, too recent to belong to Ethan. Someone else had been down there. Harper felt her heartbeat quicken. Somebody used this room. Recently. The chamber had 2 exits, the stairs they used, and a second door on the opposite wall. The hinges were loose, dust disturbed. Harper pushed it open. Beyond it stretched a long, concrete tunnel disappearing into complete darkness. And someone, or something, had walked through it not long ago. Detective Harper stood at the entrance of the tunnel, her flashlight cutting through the dense darkness. The cold air drifting from the passage felt damp and old, almost like the tunnel itself was exhaling secrets that had been buried for decades. Every instinct inside her screamed that this was no ordinary investigation anymore. This was a trail someone had intentionally hidden, and someone else was still walking. Stay close, Harper whispered to her team, stepping forward. The tunnel walls were rough and uneven, parts of them clearly older than the rest. Rusted pipes ran along one side, buzzing faintly with the sound of water. Footprints marked the dust on the ground, fresh ones, leading deeper into the maze below Maple Crest Apartments. The farther they went, the colder it became. Their flashlights revealed old rooms branching off the main tunnel, storage areas, broken equipment, abandoned crates with no labels. Everything hinted at the building's former life, the one Andrews had described. A life filled with criminals operating in the shadows. After several minutes, they reached a large underground chamber. The walls were covered in peeling paint and old warning signs. In the center of the room was a small table with something resting on top, a worn black backpack. Harper slowly approached. Inside the bag were clothes, water bottles, and several stacks of documents. But the most important item was a sealed envelope with a name written across the front in shaky handwriting. Detective Harper. Her breath caught. She tore it open, expecting a threat, or worse. But inside was a single sheet of paper, covered in rushed handwriting. The message was unmistakably from Ethan. If you're reading this, it means you found the passages. Reeves is alive. I am alive. But we can't stay in one place. They are still watching us. They are in more buildings, more cities. We escaped through this tunnel years ago. Tell the world what they did. Tell them we never left. Harper lowered the letter slowly. The room felt suddenly heavier, as if Ethan's words had sucked all the warmth out of the air. Reeves was alive. Ethan was alive. They had faked their disappearances to escape the network. But they were still running. Before Harper could process it, another officer called out, "Detective, there's something here." Near the far wall, half hidden beneath broken crates, was another passage. But this one wasn't like the others. The walls were cleaner, the dust disturbed, and the floor showed a clear trail leading outward. It looked like someone had passed through recently, very recently. Harper followed the trail until it reached a rusted metal ladder leading upward. She climbed carefully, each step echoing in the hollow shaft. At the top was a small, square hatch. She pushed it open and found herself behind Maple Crest Apartments, near an overgrown patch of trees. Whoever had used the tunnel had escaped into the woods. But the mystery didn't end there. 3 months later, just when residents began to return to normal life, Lila Jennings, the woman who filmed the banging that started everything, found an envelope taped to her door. No name. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. Lila gasped when she saw it. The picture showed the hidden chamber beneath apartment 404. The bed. The maps. The dusty walls. But someone was standing in the corner of the room, a shadowy figure wearing a hood, face hidden, head turned slightly toward the camera. On the back of the photograph, written in the same handwriting from Ethan's letter, were only 6 words. 404 was never empty. Thank you. The message was chilling, not a threat, but a sign. A sign that Ethan or Reeves, or someone else, had returned to the hidden room. A sign that the tunnels were still being used. A sign that Maple Crest Apartments still held secrets waiting to be uncovered. Police increased patrols around the building. Residents moved out one by one. But the 4th floor never lost its cold feeling. Visitors still claimed to hear footsteps behind the walls, whispers late at night, tapping on the floorboards. And apartment 404 remained locked. Not because it was empty, but because no one could be sure who, or what, might still be inside.